The Garden Report is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
Hey, Bobby Manning here. Welcome to the Garden Report on low point of the season for sure, Josue. 115-103, the final. Celtics lose and go down 3-2, setting up an elimination game in Philadelphia on Thursday. We'll get to that in our next video. For now, not a ton to break down from this one because it more or less boiled down to the Celtics just not showing up. You hear similar comments about energy not being there, shots not falling. Though Josue took a different route after the game in terms of calling it really bad game, the first really bad game for the Celtics in these playoffs. And I'm sure that's going to drive fans crazy in its own right, but it does mark a departure from his optimistic tone after some of these games.
Yeah, I think that's the one bright spot, right? Because you would expect him to sound like this more often, but because it's the first time this postseason where he's saying, this is a very bad playoff game, this is the one, then it's like, okay, well, yeah, this is the worst one, so I guess this one takes the cake. However, it doesn't make you feel particularly better about how they're going to approach Game 6. But then again, if you look at the history and the way this team has responded when their backs are against the wall, you have some trust that these guys will go out there and do what they're supposed to do. But you're talking about a playoff atmosphere. You're talking about guys like Joel Embiid, James Harden, who showed you that they're just hungrier, right, than most opponents, especially what we've seen in the last 2 games. So you do worry about that. And then you also talk about another player involved in this one, which is Maxey, right? Tyrese Maxey, which going into the 2 games in Philly, I was wondering which one's going to be the Maxey game. And if this one is it, I mean, I guess this is it. But at the same time, though, you're wondering, like, how is it going to contain someone like him? So hitting shots is going to be a big one. Obviously, you know, we didn't see that a lot in this game, especially when you look at someone like Al Horford, 0 for 7. You know, I don't think that's going to happen again in Game 6. But there's just a lot of questions that you're wondering, you know, which version of this Celtics team is going to show up in Philly when it comes down to it for Game 6, now that their backs are against the wall on the brink of elimination.
The Garden Report is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you go to FanDuel.com/Boston.
Yeah, and we thought this would mark the bounce-back game after a brutal ending to the Game 4 in Philadelphia, a game where they came out slow too, going down by 16 points.
Right.
This one, even worse. They're forced to kick out early and often. Tatum got into the lane and looked hesitant to challenge Joel Embiid in there. Jaylen Brown got a few opportunities to do so early and then didn't shoot in the second quarter, so that carried over, that disconnect. You mentioned the Maxey weak side actions, which killed the Celtics.
He had a field day on these guys.
Other guys like Tobias Harris got wide open off those weak sides, so the Sixers even advanced in what they did offensively in this game. And on top of that, you look at Horford, you look at Rob, look at Grant, more and more guys falling out of effectiveness for the Celtics here in this series. And as bad as this was for one night, developments continue to flow in the wrong direction away from the Celtics here, to where it's obvious at 3-2, say the Sixers are in control of this series at this point. It's in their hands.
No question, yeah. I mean, it's their series to lose at this point, and you're wondering how Jason Tatum's going to respond now, particularly in the first half. We can't just say overall anymore because they have his number. For some reason, they're just up to stopping him and making him not a factor in the first half, and it's putting the Celtics in a big hole that they can't get out of. They were able to almost pull it off in Philly, you know, during that overtime game, but this wasn't the case. And that's why you're wondering if that same Celtics team that we saw in Game 2 will come back, because they got their butts kicked in this one. Let's call it what it is. The final score may not indicate that, but that was certainly the case. I mean, Jason Tatum did the best he could in trying to find his offense, getting to the free throw line time and time again. But it's like what you said before, though. These guys have to go at Embiid. These guys have to. It has to be everyone. It can't just be Tatum doing it when it's too late. It can't just be that desperation when you have to be desperate in the second half and you're down by double digits going into the fourth quarter. All that has to happen before, and it has to happen from start to finish. And having to do that in Philly, it's going to be difficult, but this is a team that has to get out to a quick start because the season's going to be over if they don't.
It starts with Tatum, 0 for 6 in that first quarter. He took the same route this team typically does in these spots. Move on to the next one, close the book on this one. This is what he had to say after the game.
How much of a challenge will it be to regroup from kind of just a bad performance like this in such a big game?
I mean, I feel like I keep saying there's nothing that we could do about tonight. It happened. It's unfortunate, right? We wish we could change it, but that's not how life works. Can't go back in time. just gotta get ready for Thursday. And sounds cliche, but it's as simple as that. We got a flight tomorrow. We're gonna watch film when we get there, get some rest, shoot around Thursday, talk to you guys again, and say the same shit again, and get ready for the game on Thursday.
Thank you.
So this is my final takeaway from this one. Is this same approach going to work? We've seen this team say, forget about what just happened, we're on to the next one before, and play great, bounce back, and come back in 2 series, Miami and Milwaukee last year, and win huge games late in those series to advance after it looked like they were done. It can happen again. I don't think either of us are ruling this team out at this point. I'm not after last year, and I think it'll be a Game 7 in a coin flip. But I hear everybody after this game say, just forget about it and move on. And I have to think, is that the problem? Are they just moving
too
on,
passive.
not learning from things?
Yeah.
And
Oh, here's the line too. Here's a popular one, real quick before I forget it. There's nothing we can do about it now.
Yeah.
That's been the ongoing
or
one
things
too.
happen. They
Yeah,
love to say that,
yeah.
but something just happened. They're not aligned, I think, in terms of how to respond from these games. Some guys think it needs to be more defensive intensity. Some guys think, like Brown says, you got to attack. And Joe and Tatum look at it and say, just keep firing up the threes.
And you're wondering, when is that disconnect going to finally... I mean, they look so disjointed, not only on paper, but what they're saying after the game. So I think that's why you're wondering which team is going to show up and if they're going to just rely on those natural instincts. I mean, look, if you ask me, Bobby, the way I see this, it's just the way Joe Mazzulla's been all year long, and believing in the numbers and believing in the odds and the statistics. And the numbers would tell you that a bounce-back game is in play, right, from behind the arc. So do they double down and trying to get as many open looks that they did as Philly has challenged them in this game, or do you see a mix of the two, which I thought was what we saw in Game 2, which is the best version of the Celtics team, when everyone's getting the ball, everyone's getting their touches in, 4 or 5 guys, is an average per possession, and if that open shot's available, then you take it. But you also have to, mix it up a little bit, and I think that's what they've strayed away from so much. But you have to credit Philadelphia, because the reason why they're doing that is because when you miss those shots, they're making you pay on the other end. And when they get out to a double-digit lead, all of a sudden they go into desperation mode and they're rushing their possessions, and it's just an endless cycle that they have to get out of. So getting out to a quick start is obviously important for this team.
We'll talk keys to Game 6 in our next video. For now, that's it. Yeah, complete disaster here at TD Garden tonight. Not much more to say than that. Now the Celtics face elimination on Thursday in Philadelphia. We'll have coverage from Wells Fargo, where the Celtics need a win or go home. Josue, Pavon, Bobby Manning. This has been the Garden Report. Check out the reactions on CLNS Media and our Game 6 preview here on Celtics All Access.
CLNS Media's Celtics coverage is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win.